Just say we are. Just say we are. Modern technology. All right. It's 2:05. We'll call the meeting of the City of Oviedo Development Review Committee to order. It's Thursday, March the 8th. Let the record reflect that all members are present. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes from the November 1st, 2012 DRC meeting. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I motion to approve DRC minutes of November 1st, 2012.
Second.
We have a motion to approve from Mr. Wyatt, and a second by Mr. White. Is there any discussion? I've got one thing that I would like to have us, if we would make part of the motion. Under approval of minutes, it says a motion to recommend approval. And that should read a motion to approve. So we could have, just make that part of the motion, that recommend approval be changed to approve before I sign it as chairman.
Code.
That would be it. Is the seconder okay?
Yes.
All right. So we have a motion to approve with a specific amendment to change. Recommend approval to approve under approval of minutes. Is there any other discussion? Okay. Hearing none, call the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Okay. Next item is ordinance number 1556. It's amendments to the Land Development Code, Article 6, Section 6.4, and Tables 6.4 and 6.9. Let me hear from staff, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request for the Development Review Committee to recommend approval of amendments to the Land Development Code, Article 6, Downtown Mixed-Use Regulations, specifically to Section 6.4 and Tables 6.4 and 6.9 related to new downtown development and redevelopment districts. On March 5, 2012, City Council found Article 6, Section 6.4 of the City of Oviedo Land Development Code to be ambiguous relative to drive-throughs, drive-through restaurants, and directed the city staff to propose an amendment to Article 6, Section 6.4 Land Development Code in order to remove the apparent ambiguity. The city attorney provided an opinion confirming the ambiguity and inconsistency as to the City of Oviedo Land Development Code, Article 6, Section 6.4 F3A and Table 6.4 that is provided as an attachment. City staff and city attorney have worked together to create ordinance number 1556. The ambiguity inconsistency was caused by the fact that while Table 6.4 included in the prohibited column the language all uses not specifically listed as permitted uses, implying that all uses not specifically listed as permitted would be prohibited. Section 6.4 F3A stated that uses other than those specified in Table 6.4, permitted and prohibited uses in the new downtown village core district, shall be permitted if found by the City Council to be similar and compatible to the specified uses and in compliance with the downtown master plan, opening for opportunities for applicants' requests directly to City Council to allow for particular uses not specifically listed in the permitted column. In order to solve the ambiguity and consistency found in the Land Development Code, staff revised Article 6, Section 6.4 F3A and B, Table 6.4, and Section 6.4 G3A, B, and C, and Table 6.9. The proposed changes allow for, and this is on page 4, removing the ambiguity and inconsistency found by the City Council by deleting the sentence, uses other than those specified in Table 6.4 and Table 6.9 shall be permitted if found by the City Council to be similar and compatible to the specified uses and in compliance with the downtown master plan, from both sections 6.4 GA and section 6.4 F, A, and B, including a list of uses in the prohibited column of both Table 6.4 and Table 6.9 to make it clear the specific uses that do not comply with the principles set forth by the downtown master plan. Also clarifying that prohibited uses will not be allowed under any circumstance by inserting the language prohibited uses will not be allowed under any circumstance in section 6.4 F3B and section 6.4 G3C. Standardizing the tables and sections languages by replacing the term permitted uses for permissible uses. There is no budget impact arising from the adoption of ordinance number 1556, and we consider that the recommended change in the City of Oviedo Land Development Code, Article 6, Section 6.4 F 6.3A and B, Table 6.4, and Section 6.4G3, A, B, and C, and Table 6.9 reinforces the principles established by the Downtown Master Plan, and therefore reinforces the community character strategic focus area established by the 2012 updated strategic plan for the City of Oviedo. We recommend that the Development Review Committee recommend adoption of ordinance number 1556. And we are ready to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any questions for staff?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. I know that we're here today to address some ambiguities based on drive-throughs, but I'm curious, are there anything else, any other categories that have been added to this table or redefined that are going to cause ambiguities in the future?
No, because we didn't include anything. All we did was clarify the issue with the drive-throughs and whatever is not listed. I mean, we didn't want to open the possibility for applicants to come and request City Council to review, each time. So what the table shows is what was already permitted. We didn't change that. We just made it more clear.
I mean, on the prohibited side.
In the prohibited side, before we didn't list all the prohibited uses. It was by exclusion. So now what we are doing is that we are listing everything that was meant to be prohibited before.
Are some of these items defined somewhere else?
Yes, in the article.
Like outdoor storage, or problematic uses, or
It is
other buildings?
defined.
I'm just curious if they're defined.
It's defined in Article 6.
And the uses that are permissible are also defined in Article 6.
That did answer my question.
Do we have any other questions? Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to recommend adoption of ordinance 1556.
Do we have a second? So we have a motion by Mr. White, second by Mr. White, to recommend adoption of ordinance number 1556. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Okay. When is this going to PZA?
It's going to PZA on November 13th, City Council first reading and public hearing on November 19th, and City Council adoption, public hearing on December 3rd.
Okay. All right, next item of business is resolution number 2610-12. It's a deviation request for 1077 West Broadway Street, State Route 426, Oviedo, Florida. The applicant is RKM Development Corporation. Can we hear from staff, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request for two deviations to the City of Oviedo 2006 Land Development Code requirements. The first is a request for a 130-foot deviation to the 330-foot minimum center-line to center-line distance requirement between non-residential driveways on arterial roads per section 11.3H4B of the City of Oviedo 2006 Land Development Code to allow a non-residential driveway to be located 200 feet center-line to center-line from other driveways. You have on your package the attachment number 2, the last page. You have a plan. This is a little bit too small, but I have a larger version here showing graphically what are the two deviations. If you want to take a look. This is the distance between the two center lines of both driveways. This is the first deviation, and the other deviation is regarding the distance between the driveway to the intersection. And both are measured center line to center line. So these are two distinct deviations from two distinct requirements of the Land Development Code. As I said before, the second request is for a 115-foot deviation to the 330-foot minimum center line to center line distance requirement between non-residential right-in, right-out driveways and intersections on arterial roads per section 11.3H4F of the City of Oviedo 2006 LDC to allow a non-residential driveway to be located 215 feet from the center line intersection of Broadway Street, State Road 426, and Chippendale Terrace, as shown on the map. The subject request results in a 39% deviation to the 330-foot minimum center line to center line distance requirement between non-residential driveways on arterial roads, and a 35% deviation to the 330-foot minimum center line to center line distance requirement between non-residential right-in, right-out driveways and intersections on arterial roads. The subject request is accompanied by a non-statutory development agreement, which is provided in Exhibit Number 1 of the Resolution Number 261012. So that's also in your package, and it describes the two deviations and all the agreements between the owner and the city. The property is located at 1077 West Broadway Street in the corner of Chippendale Terrace and Broadway Street. You have the location map also attached to your report, which is attachment number 1. And the property has a future land use designation of commercial and is located in a commercial C1 zoning district. The property has 3 different parcels which are listed in this report, the identification numbers. This deviation results from submitted plans for a site development order, final engineering, project number 11-00218. The plans are currently under review for a 8,987 square foot retail building on approximately 0.91 acres. The plans include requests for these 2 greater than 30% deviations for the placement of the subject right-in, right-out non-commercial driveway. The owners currently have a purchase and sale agreement with RKM Development Corporation, which is the applicant in this request. The city transportation consultant reviewed the requested deviations and recommends approval with some conditions, which I will report a little bit later in my presentation. When we have deviations, we have to, the applicant and staff have to consider 7 criteria, and I will go one by one to present to the board. The first criterion is the existence of special conditions. This the request has 3 special conditions. The first is that the property frontage to Broadway Street is smaller than the minimum distance requirement, which is 330 feet, and the property is 191.83 feet. The second specific condition is that the location of the existing office building on the west of the property prevents the ability to obtain cross-access from the driveway that serves that property. So we cannot require the applicant to do that. And the third condition is that City Council adopted resolution number 2571-12, a preliminary development order, which requires that the applicant provide a right-in, right-out access point on Broadway Street, State Road 426. The second criteria is compatibility, and the addition of a driveway connection directly on Broadway Street will reduce traffic generated by the retail store on Chippendale Terrace, so reducing the impact of the traffic on the residential development located on the south side of the property. It will, because it's a right-in, right-out type access, the proposed driveway will not impact the office property situated on the west side of the subject property. Item number 3, which is proper use of mitigative techniques, is where we list what are the conditions that staff and the transportation consultant agreed to include in the development agreement. According to our transportation consultant, left turns both in and out from this project site at this driveway should be prohibited for a couple of reasons, and the reasons are listed here, which I will read. They can be made more conveniently at the signal provided at Chippendale Terrace and State Road 426. The other one is that there is not sufficient space to accommodate deceleration and queue storage for westbound lefts at the driveway due to the proximity to the signal. This movement would potentially block the eastbound left turn movement at the signal. The third reason is that left turns out of the project site would add several new conflict points and again could block the eastbound left turn movements if vehicles turn into the center turn lane to make a two-stage left turn. So the city's transportation consultant and his staff recommend 3 mitigative techniques. The first one is the driveway shall be designed using proper channelization to allow or prohibit the appropriate movements and not rely on just signage. The eastbound approach to the intersection shall be restriped to have a through lane and a right turn only lane that drops at the intersection. There is space to do this today, but eventually it would need to be restriped as a two-way through right once State Road 426 is widened to 4 lanes beyond Pine Street. And the third condition is that the two-way left turn lane on State Road 426 adjacent to the project site shall be restriped to be an eastbound left turn lane only to Pine Avenue. So these 3 conditions were added to the non-statutory development agreement as conditions of approval. The other 4 criteria, they are either they don't apply to this project or the applicant has provided enough evidence that it's compatible and acceptable. So this item will be considered by the PZA on November 13, 2012, and by City Council on November 19, 2012. This deviation request facilitates access to a new business being established in the city of Oviedo. It supports the economic vitality and development strategic focus area through the promotion of the local economy, bringing jobs and profitable businesses to the city. This is the strategic impact of this project. Our recommendation is that the DRC recommend adoption of resolution number 2610-12 approving the 2 requested deviations. This finalizes my presentation and we are available for questions. Thank you.
Any questions for the staff?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. White.
I think I understood you to say the mechanism that we're using to identify right in, right out only is striping. It's not concrete barriers or...
That's what it's shown on the plans that were submitted. That's why we're making that recommendation.
The fire department can support right in, right out as long as we have access for emergency conditions to make that left-hand turn just for those few and infrequent circumstances. So as long as the design doesn't include something that would prohibit us from passing, making the left turn there, the right in, right out would be a thing for us.
Do we have any other questions for the staff? Hearing none. I'd like to hear from the applicant, please. And can we have your name and address?
Tom Skelton, American Civil Engineering Company. We've read the conditions of approval and just got a note. We do have a meeting tomorrow, I believe, on this, and it includes the DOT. And we had submitted for a DOT driveway permit that obtained it. I sent the city a copy of that driveway, which doesn't include some of these things, which I believe the DOT reviewed when they issued their traffic ops deed. But if they're going to be at the meeting, bring them up. I don't think the right in or the right turn lane comment should apply because the number of trips I don't think justifies the need to restrike the whole thing for a right turn lane into the site there. And I would like to say that we get input from the DOT tomorrow on that to go forward on that part. I don't think we have a problem in restriping of the lanes, but I think the DOT, when they reviewed it, they have the driveway to the west or whatever. They need to make the decel or whatever available to them, and if we were to restripe it and cut that off, and that cuts out their ability to move it to their site. So I would like to get the DOT's input, further input, even though I think they already reviewed it, permitted it from tomorrow's meeting, and apply it towards the conditions to move forward.
Is there anything else?
No, that's it.
Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I want to add that we do have a meeting scheduled with Florida Department of Transportation. And when Joe and I spoke with, I believe his name is Joe Wood, and we told them about the right-in, right-out requirement in the site development order. They had no issue with it. They were not aware of the right-in, right-out only requirement. So they are willing to work with the city on requiring the right-in, right-out. They just want to make sure they see how it's going to take place. And then once it takes place, the applicant will have to revise the plans for the permit for DOT, not for the city, but for DOT, to reflect that it is right-in, right-out and how it will be done. So the applicant, I guess, wishes not to include those conditions. So I would recommend that we continue the DRC for this item. This needs to be a part of the recommendation carrying forward. Whatever DRC decides is what's going to the PCA, and it's also going to City Council. So if you do not include this into your recommendation, you will have nothing to recommend in terms of mitigated techniques.
Is it possible to move forward with the conditions if they note that the DOT has objections to the way that the traffic consultant, that it just gets addressed at DOT? We can move forward with the conditions if the DOT says, okay, you have to do it, and the city says, yeah, you have to do it. There's no sense in...
I don't think we need to continue. I think we can move forward. And this body is a recommending body. You have a meeting with the DOT and you find out something different, the staff can update the Planning, Zoning, and Appeals Board. They can also update the City Council to let them know that the meeting occurred after the DRC meeting. The DRC acted upon what information was provided. There may be things that we can do as well here ourselves to address Chief White's concerns, as well. So let's see if we can move forward. And if we as a board, once we're done with our discussion, if we feel that we're not ready to make a recommendation, then yes, we can continue it until the time after their meeting. So, but let's have our discussion first and see what we can do. And if we can't come to some type of solution, then we'll look at continuing. But let's see if we can bring forward the recommendation first. Okay. Mr. Skelton, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, Deborah just said to continue till Monday. Now, I thought it was going to be continued till December.
Oh, Lord, no. No.
But if
We have a
it's
schedule.
Monday, I can see.
No, we have a schedule. November 19th, we have a schedule that we're on, so that's very, very important that we have a schedule. Okay. That. Okay. All right. Well, the first part of the process that we must do is to start with a motion, and then we'll have discussion of that motion. If we need to ask additional questions, we can. So let's do that first. Let's start with a motion, and then we can go into discussion. If we have things to add or subtract from that motion, we can do that.
Mr. Chairman, can I prompt a question?
Sure, no problem. Here's your question, too. Oh, okay. All right.
Or member of staff as well. It seems to me what staff is recommending is it's sufficient enough to cover, I think, what needs to be accomplished here. Do we need to put in the recommendations some of my concerns? I mean, it's not, what they recommend here is not prohibited. Those comments from DOT are part of that design, so maybe we're overcomplicating this if we go much beyond what they're recommending. I mean, I would almost adopt verbatim what they said. The only caveat I was considering adding was the design should facilitate the turn of emergency apparatus, and leave it that simple. Not get real specific. The deviations to me are reasonable.
Yeah. I think we can get there. Earlier, I think we can get there. I think your concerns are well-founded, to be honest with you. When you're dealing with the development agreement, you're setting minimum standards. Okay. This development agreement involves two deviations greater than 30%, which means by code they're required to have that. Also, by code, we're supposed to come up with mitigative techniques that lessen the impact of the deviation granted. And the staff has given us 3 mitigative techniques. The other thing that we have to do, and this is a direction of our city council, we have to make sure that whatever we do, this driveway is right in, right out. Their pre-development order dictated that, right in, right out. So that's the other thing that we've got to do. By spacing requirements, the land development code says that all this driveway can be is right in, right out, because they can't meet the spacing requirements for full access. So, to me, that's what we've got to work, our parameters, you might say, what we have to work with. But I think we have room within those parameters that we can work with some things. And to also address the need for emergency services to this building and how we get the emergency services there. So I think there's ways we can do it. But I would say from the standpoint of if we're comfortable with what's in the development agreement as it is, as written, then that's what we should recommend. If there are concerns, then we should make sure that we are detailed in our direction and we are clear in our direction. because the PZA is going to consider our recommendation along with staff. Staff gets the opportunity to state whether or not they concur with us. The City Council is going to look at the staff, us, and the PZA and determine what they concur with. So, from the standpoint, if we consider our audience is the council, we want to be clear to them so they know when they read this that the DRC recommends these things. They understand what we're talking about. Okay. We good? You got a question?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
It's for Mr. Wyatt. As a city engineer, does this fit your needs as for roads? I mean, is this all workable, doable, good for you?
Yeah, and there are mitigation techniques which will allow what they're requesting.
Okay. You know more about it than I do. I just have one other question. Other than the striping, how is it that you're going to handle that right in, right out to avoid somebody from left turning?
That's a question for you.
The other part is the signage.
Besides the signage?
You have the signage and the striping. Other than you set up a policeman over there, make some money, you gotta make everybody turn.
Mr. Chairman, I have a procedural question.
Yes, Mr. Wyatt?
Is it possible to craft a recommendation such that it looks to the meeting with DOT that we can incorporate any mitigated techniques which they would allow and then update the resolution accordingly as it goes to PCA and council? That makes sense.
I think there's one.
In other words, if we come to a consensus with DOT on mitigated technique, we update the staff report with mitigation or mitigated techniques accordingly. I'm familiar with techniques which would work, I think, accommodate all aspects at a very minimal cost and maybe agreeable to DOT, but I'd rather wait and discuss it with them before making such suggestions.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do. It's a good segue in. Let's get a motion on the table. And then in our discussion, let's start looking at ways that we can accomplish that. And also look at ways that we can also assist Chief White in addressing his concerns. As well, I've got some thoughts that I'd like to put out there for you guys, but I can't do that until we have a motion. And procedurally, I can't make the motion. So,
Mr. Chairman, I'll take this stand.
okay.
I'd like to recommend adoption of resolution number 2610-12, approving the 2 requested deviations and whose design will not restrict the access of emergency apparatus.
Okay.
Add on once we have a discussion.
Sorry, I'm trying to write as fast as I can. Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. White and a second by Mr. Wyatt to recommend adoption of resolution number 2610-12, approving both deviations with the condition that the design will not restrict access of emergency apparatus. Right, Mr. White?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, let's move. We have a motion and a second. Let's move into discussion. Mr. White, did you have something you wanted to
I
add?
would just make a suggestion or I'd like to offer a friendly amendment such that the recommendation include to provide for mitigating techniques consensus with DOT on a meeting forthcoming.
Okay, we have a friendly amendment. Motion agree?
Yes.
Obviously, the secretary agrees. Giving you everything? I've got a couple of things. Mine are a little bit more detailed. Y'all would turn to page 5 for the agreement. Mr. White, this starts getting into the let's make it clear mantra.
That's your expertise.
So, and I'm going to need help in some of these. If you're looking at 5 conditions of approval, you see that the first one is the driveway shall be designed using proper channelization to allow/prohibit the appropriate movements and not rely on just signage. What I would like to do is after the word movements, I would like to add the words associated with a right-in, right-out driveway. And then at the end of this, I would like to add the second sentence to this to say the driveway design. Let's see, I want to use Mr. White's. Let's make sure I get it right. Because at the end of this is the second sentence. I would like us to add that the driveway design shall not restrict the access of emergency apparatus to and from the property. And then what I'd like to also do, well, first let me ask, is that acceptable to a motioner and seconder, first off? Yes. Okay. In number 2, this is more, like I said, this is more of a, let's make it clear, the eastbound approach to the, right there, after the word the, I'd like to add Broadway Street, parentheses, Street SR 426 / Chippendale Terrace. Intersection shall be restricted. That's the only thing I'd like to add to number 2. Okay. And then number 3. This is one where I'm going to need some help. Maybe with what we did to number 1, it may not need this help, but I'd like to let's take a stab at this one because I think we need to add something in for Mr. Skelton as well. The two-way left turn lane on Broadway Street, State Route 426, adjacent to the project site shall be, what I would like to, instead of saying restriped, what I'd like to say is shall be converted. Cross out restriped and just add the word converted. 2, strike out the word be. So it reads, shall be converted to an eastbound left turn lane only to Pine Avenue. And then I'd like to add to the end of this sentence to say something along the line, utilizing such measures to ensure that the subject driveway is right in and right out only, and found to be acceptable by the Florida Department of Transportation. I'm hoping I've covered yours. But the other thing that I think we should do, and I think Mr. Skelton made a good point, is the impact to the driveway to the west, and that whether or not by generically say acceptable to FDOT, are we covered there, or do we need to add language in to cover that, minimal impact to access to property to the west?
Is I understood in the road widening project, so we fix that.
I'm not sure how this, because this is the transition zone.
Yeah.
Right now, it's where it drops from 4 to 2. So I don't know. I'm assuming that it's always going to, it'll go to just 4 lanes through there when the roadway project occurs. But so at that time, I would assume that the turn lane will be reconfigured in some form or fashion, but I don't know how.
I suspect the office complex to the west doesn't come anywhere near the traffic count right now for a right turning lane. But is that your figure right? Is it by what we're doing here, we're impacting that?
Well, Mr. Scott made the point that the middle lane, the left turn lane, supports that property to the west, and such that if we reconfigure the left turn lane, we need to keep in mind that that driveway has full access, and so we need to maintain that full access on there. So that was one of the things that I was looking at. And I was just thinking, well, if we say if it's acceptable to DOT, then obviously, and like I said, looking ahead to the meeting tomorrow. But I didn't know if we needed to put something in here specifically stating that whatever measures are used, that as a third item would not restrict left-hand turn lanes into the west property. I didn't know if that was needed or, as like I said, Mr. Scott makes a good point.
Mr. Chairman, I would add that to the end of your sentence. In other words, we have utilized such measures to ensure right in, right out only and acceptable to FDOT and does not prohibit full access as exists for the property to the west.
Okay, so we'll do. Okay. Okay, so let me, before you guys say you accept or not, let me read it to you, and y'all can tell me how you feel about it. Well, you got another one? Okay.
Well, I'd like to just suggest, as number 3 starts, this is the two-way left turn lane.
Mm-hmm.
Can I suggest we call it bidirectional center turn lane?
That's fine with me.
Call it the bidirectional bidirectional center turn lane.
Let me read number 3. And just to let the record, just to catch us up, we've done the friendly amendment on number 1. We've accepted the friendly amendment on number 2. So now we're talking about number 3. So number 3 would be changed to read, the bidirectional center turn lane on Broadway Street, State Route 426, adjacent to the project site, shall be converted to an eastbound left turn lane only to Pine Avenue, utilizing such measures to ensure that the subject driveway is right in, right out only, comma, found to be acceptable by the Florida Department of Transportation, comma, and does not prohibit full access to the property to the west. Should we say adjacent property to the west? Adjacent property to the west.
Adjacent property.
So I think that way we've set it up for the meeting tomorrow. We've followed the City Council's direction that it's right in, right out. We've addressed the property to the west. Thank you, Mr. Scott. And we've been clear. So I think we've accomplished all of those things. So, I will, in order to help Mrs. Holt, I'll try to read this back. We have a motion by, let me ask this, is there any other discussion? Okay. We have a motion by Mr. White and a second by Mr. Wyatt to recommend approval or recommend adoption of resolution number 2610-12 with the following revisions to the development agreement. One, let's see here, generally, the design of the driveway will not restrict the access to emergency apparatus, generally. And then specifically, under Section 5 of the development agreement, under conditions of approval, number 1 shall be revised to read, the driveway shall be designed using proper channelization to allow/prohibit the appropriate movements associated with a right-in, right-out driveway and not rely on the signage. The next sentence shall be added. The driveway design shall not restrict access of emergency apparatus to and from the property. Number 2 shall be revised to read, the eastbound approach to the Broadway Street, parentheses, State Route 426, /Chippendale Terrace intersection shall be restriped to have a through lane and a right turn only lane that drops at the intersection. There is space to do this today, but eventually it will need to be restriped as a two-way through/right once Broadway Street, State Route 426 is widened to 4 lanes beyond Pine Street. Number 3 shall be revised to read, the bidirectional center turn lane on Broadway Street, State Route 426, adjacent to the project site, shall be converted to an eastbound left turn lane only to Pine Avenue, utilizing such measures to ensure that the subject driveway is right in, right out only, found to be acceptable by the Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT, and does not prohibit full access to the adjacent property to the west. And that would be our recommended motion. Is there any further discussion on the recommended motion?
Mr. Chairman, I have another item I'd like the board to consider. If DOT feels that their plans needs to change, the applicant will be required to amend their plan with DOT to reflect the right-in, right-out only. It would be up to the board if you all would like to include that as part of your motion, that the applicant shall revise plans with DOT to show the right-in, right-out.
Isn't that required? I mean, we can't.
DOT will require.
Yeah. I think we stated.
That's to the board if you all would.
I think that falls under acceptable FDOT.
Yeah, and I think we stated that it's going to be right in, right out.
Okay.
We stated it has to be right in, right out. So I don't think we have to go that far to say revise your plans. If DOT says that, DOT may come back and say, hey, you can do it as an as-built. You know, they may not make them revise their application. So, what do you guys think? I don't think we really need to. So, okay. All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Good discussion, gentlemen. Thank you. All right. We have no discussion items. Our future meeting dates are November 15th, November 29th, and December the 6th, all at 2 o'clock in these chambers. It is 2:55. We will stand adjourned.